Hi, welcome again to this second episode of Psychologic with OmphileS, the channel in which we'll be talking all issues mental health and relationships. We are still continuing on the mental health aspects. But before I go into it, I want to just say thank you to those of us, or those of you rather, who have listened to my first video, liked, shared, and subscribed. Thank you very much. Your support is greatly appreciated. And if you haven't done so yet, I really do urge you to subscribe and share the video with somebody that you believe might benefit from the information that will be shared on this video or even in this channel. Okay, so I said today we will be continuing on the issue of mental health. And today specifically, I want to focus on the issue of the mental health continuum, the various stages on there, and what are the interventions that can be done relative to those stages that you may find yourself at, or where your loved one may be at, so that you are able to support them correctly. I will also be touching on the concept of mental health first aid, which I believe some of you may have heard or may not have heard about before, and just talking deeper about what it means and how you can actually apply mental health first aid to help somebody in need. I want to use an analogy of physical health and compare that to mental health, because the two are so interrelated. And if we took our mental health as seriously as we take our physical health, we would go a long way in preventing a lot of the mental health illnesses or problems, or even helping to resolve them quickly when we do develop them. So let's start with the physical health. On the physical wellness side, we know very well how to take care of our bodies. We eat well, we rest, we exercise, and we do all the necessary work that is required to prevent ill health. However, we don't pay so much attention on the mental health side of things. And so it's very important for us as well to look after our mental health and take care of our mental well-being by preventing the development of mental problems or deterioration of our mental health. And we do this by minimizing those things in our lives that are stressors. And stress can come from any angle in our lives. It can come from finances, from relationships, from work, anything really that may exert a lot of or demand a lot of energy from you that you don't have capacity for at that moment. So learning to live balanced lives where we minimize stress, and we'll also look into issues of self-care where we pour into ourselves and build up enough energy and resilience in order to be able to be resistant to those stressors that come our way. Preparing ourselves also, or equipping ourselves with the skills and knowledge of how to handle stress in the areas that are stressing us is very important. For example, if it's in parenting, learning about parenting skills can be helpful. If it's finances, seeking financial assistance and guidance may be helpful. If it's relationships, relationship counseling may help. So prevention, the stage of prevention takes many forms and is quite critical in the maintenance of our well-being, of our mental well-being. We may also find ourselves in the next step of developing a mental health problem. This is where we begin to notice some mild symptoms or changes in our usual selves, which can manifest either in our behavior, in our emotion, or even in our physical bodies, as in when it comes to behavior, for example, we may begin to lose interest in things that used to excite us a lot. When it comes to emotion, we may be prone to irritability, emotional outbursts, or having a low mood most of the time. And when it comes to issues of physical manifestation, having unexplained physical pain can be one of the indicators that we may be on a path to developing some mental problem, and therefore early intervention is key. Early intervention in the form of being able to identify what is the stressor or what is the thing that is exerting or demanding from us more than we can give, and therefore taking corrective action in order to help ourselves so that we can reduce the likelihood of secondary effects such as loss of employment, school dropout, or even relationship breakup, which can further lead to drug and alcohol use problems. And the next stage in the continuum of mental health then deals with when somebody is now experiencing or having a mental health illness. And to get there, it's very important that we first get diagnosis. At this stage, we need to be seeking professional help and be able to access those support services that are available for treatment. And we can only do that when we seek help from professionals. I also want to make a point here that one of the key things here is we need to avoid trying to diagnose ourselves or diagnose our family members. Only professional and well-qualified professionals such as your psychiatrist, your psychologist, your doctors may make those diagnoses. We need, in order to also minimize the stigma around mental health, we need to avoid those self-diagnoses. And once we have noticed that either ourselves or people around us, especially those who may be in crisis or even those that may not be in crisis, need help, let us be able to assist them to be able to access help. One of the to access help in the form of treatment and support. And one of the treatment interventions can be even hospitalization, depending on the severity of the mental health illness that the person is suffering from. So taking someone to a mental health facility, a clinic, or a hospital might be quite helpful because therein they can be able to access multidisciplinary help from different types of professionals, and therefore fast track their recovery and their treatment outcomes. We need to also just remember that there's no one-size-fits-all type of intervention. Every person is unique, and every person needs to follow their own treatment plan as according to the diagnosis that will be provided by the professional concerned. The last stage has to do with the recovery. And recovery can take many forms. Not many forms. There are two forms basically when it comes to recovery. The first one is where somebody has been diagnosed for the first time, for example, with a mental illness. They go through the necessary treatment and are able to fully recover and go back to full functioning. The second part involves where one has been diagnosed with a lifelong mental illness, such as your schizophrenia, which are rather lifelong, and therefore means that somebody has to make certain adjustments in terms of their life and repurpose their lives around and come to the acceptance of taking medication for the rest of their lives and undergoing therapy in order to repurpose their lives for a meaningful and a purposeful life in the long term. So learning certain personal growth and coping skills through therapy, and also sticking to one's medical intervention or treatment plan is quite important for the maintenance of that recovery stage. Let's talk about mental health first aid. It's very similar to physical health first aid, or what we call CPR in the physical health world. It's about helping somebody who's going through a mental health crisis, stabilizing them, and then getting them professional help. So why is that important that we skill ourselves with mental health first aid skills? It's important because at any stage in our lives, or anywhere, whether in our work situation, whether we may be having leisure somewhere, dining out in a restaurant, you never know where you will meet a situation where you may need to assist somebody. So having, as much as all of us recognize the importance of physical health first aid, let us also recognize and take up the courage to get ourselves trained in mental health first aid. I'll go through the various stages. It will not be in depth. What is important is that we know the basics. There are various courses that are available that will equip you in full detail about mental health first aid. But I'll go through the first principle, the principles of what it involves. I started by comparing it to physical health first aid. So as with physical health first aid, there are 4 main goals of doing first aid in the physical world. And now in the mental health world, we've added an additional one. And some of these goals include protecting life, making sure that people are not at risk for self-danger or even for harming others. Prevent the condition from getting worse. So the sooner a person can get professional help, the sooner they can recover, and even the chances of full recovery can be increased by how soon we are able to get them assistance. Promote recovery through support and in mental health to reduce the stigma related to mental health illnesses. So those being the goals of doing mental health first aid, what are some of the actions that are involved? Let's start with the approach. Before you approach somebody, make a good assessment of what is at risk. Is this person in a crisis, or are they in a position where you can basically engage with them? When they are in a crisis, we need containment measures and then be able to get them to a place of help where they can receive proper treatment, which will follow a proper diagnosis. But if they are not in crisis mode, what can you do to engage with somebody that you see that their mental health has been compromised, or they are developing a mental health problem? You can engage with that person and ask them, make sure that you avail yourself, that they understand that you are there to help them, and ask them if they are willing to help you. They are willing to engage with you, that you are there to help them. And if they are willing to engage, do listen non-judgmentally. Don't be quick to provide solutions. Don't be quick to jump into judgments and telling them, no, you can jump out of this. I can motivate you to feel better about it. Listen non-judgmentally. And only after listening, give reassurance and information. Not advice, reassurance and information. Correct information about what to do when you are in this situation. Perhaps you can make then an encouragement for them to go and see a professional about their condition. Once they have been able to offload and they feel they have been listened to, and you've provided that safe space for them, then you can encourage them to seek help. And there are various forms of help that can be obtained, as we will be going through those in detail as we cover each of the different mental illnesses that we will be covering. But at a high level, there is psychiatric help, which will involve medical assistance or pharmacological treatment. There's psychological help, there's occupational therapy help, there is also social assistance that can be provided. There are support groups in the community, different types of interventions that are available. There are helplines that are available that a person can call if they are not ready yet to go for professional help. Encourage other sort of support as well. Like if you are not their family member, you can encourage them to reach out to one person in their family that they can trust, that they can open up to, so that they don't always have to be on their own in dealing with the issues that they are dealing with. And lastly, once the person has been stabilized, once the person has been at least in contact with some sort of professional help, you can then look at yourself, because self-care is very important. Sometimes after you've helped somebody through a crisis, you yourself may start having what we call vicarious trauma. And we will explain that again in future videos. But what it basically means is that transferring the trauma of another person to you. So we can find ourselves in that position where you are suffering from that. Therefore, self-care becomes a very important element in the first aid provision stages. Having said that, let me end the video here because we don't want it to be too long. I hope that you are able to take something for yourself today. Please, as I asked earlier on, subscribe, share, like the video, and thank you again for listening. Until next time, goodbye.